Just 3 days after the runoff elections in Ecuador, the president for Citizens Revolution Movement, Luisa Gonzalez, revealed Thursday new irregularities of the electoral process held Sunday. A Russian press environment reporter met Thursday with the emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, who is in Moscow for an official visit. The Palestinian movement Hamas informed Thursday that it is ready to begin negotiations on a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and the release of hostages in exchange for the withdrawal of Israeli troops. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. And just 3 days after the runoff elections in Ecuador, the president for Citizens Revolution Movement, Luisa Gonzalez, revealed Thursday new irregularities of the electoral process held Sunday. The Gonzalez team denounced the existence of tallies without signatures, altered voter registers, and more votes than voters among the most serious irregularities found. The team urged the National Electoral Council to publish the signed tallies and to conduct a public hearing to audit the results. On the other hand, Gonzalez accused Daniel Noboa of taking advantage of his position as head of state while he was a presidential candidate, issuing decrees and official appearances for the benefit of his campaign. And Haiti's capital Port-au-Prince remains tense after a day of rallies and threats of violence. The demonstrators urged the government and the Transitional Presidential Council on Wednesday to improve the city's security in the face of the wave of terror by gangs controlling more than 85% of the capital. The protesters blocked streets and roads leading to key city areas and burned tires and set up barricades. Public activities were suspended in communities and some not yet in the hands of the gangs, where demonstrators demanded the resignation of Prime Minister Aristide Transitional Council and of its General Director Ramon Normil. And the multinational security support mission in Haiti received additional personnel with the arrival of new agents from Jamaica. The reinforcement will attempt to curb the violent attacks from criminal groups that have generated a serious disruption of the social, political, and economic life in the country. This is the second Jamaican contingent that joins the troops commanded by Kenya in this Caribbean nation. The first landing took place at the Toussaint Louverture International Airport in Port-au-Prince, the country's capital, and was comprised of 24 soldiers and policemen who landed on September 12, 2024. In other topics, in the United States, 2 people were killed and 6 were wounded after an active shooter opened fire on the Florida State University campus in Tallahassee Thursday. FSU Police Chief Jason Trumbauer said a gunman opened fire near the university's student union at approximately 11:50 a.m. local time, striking multiple people and sending students fleeing for cover. He also stated that campus police responded immediately, neutralized, and apprehended the suspect. Trumbauer declared that 2 people were pronounced deceased and 6 others were taken to a local hospital, including the suspected shooter. The 2 fatal victims were not students. Leon County Sheriff Walter Neal identified the alleged gunman as 20-year-old Phoenix Igner, a student at FSU. Igner's mother is a longtime Leon County Sheriff deputy, and one of her weapons was found at the scene. And Venezuelans under the temporary protected status in the United States accused Secretary of State Marco Rubio of treason on Wednesday after he endorsed the termination of the program. In this regard, the head of the Venezuelan-American caucus, Adelis Ferro, asserted that the Secretary of State has requested Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem through a letter to terminate the TPS for over 600,000 Venezuelans. Ferro stated the petition was a rude awakening for them since in March 2022, Rubio had encouraged the Biden administration to extend TPS protections for Venezuelans. The letter released this month made Venezuelans notice the hardline stance taken by Rubio, far-right parliamentarians, and opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. And in El Salvador on Wednesday, United States Senator Chris Van Hollen was denied a visit with Salvadoran migrant Kilmar Abrego Garcia, wrongly deported to the Latin American nation under Trump administration's orders. Precisely, Salvadoran Vice President Felix Ulloa reportedly confirmed to Van Hollen that Abrego Garcia remains detained at the High Security Center SECOT, not due to crimes, but at the request of the United States government. The Maryland senator, who also co-chairs the Senate's Foreign Policy Committee, intended to visit the deportee at the center and demand his return to the U.S. In this context, Van Hollen ratified to the press Abrego Garcia had been illegally abducted since no crime has been proven against him.
Okay. I'm asking President Bukele, under his authority as President of El Salvador, to do the right thing and allow Mr. Abrego Garcia to walk out of a prison, a man who's charged with no crime, convicted of no crime, and who was illegally abducted from the United States.
Puerto Rico experienced a massive power outage on Wednesday that affected over 1 million customers. On Thursday morning, Puerto Rico Governor Jennifer Gonzalez Colon said in a press conference that the blackout was caused by a transmission failure and that power has yet to be restored to more than 50% of the island. In addition, Colon assured that most hospitals were functional, with some being connected to generators, stressing there has been no decrease in their service or operations. For their part, Luma Energy, the power company servicing the Caribbean nation, admitted in a statement that the work to restore electricity among those affected could take between 48 and 72 hours. We have now our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Russian President Vladimir Putin welcomed Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi to the Kremlin for talks on Iran's nuclear program. Araghchi, who arrived in Moscow for a two-day official visit, is also expected to hold talks with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov on Friday. In addition, it was unveiled earlier by Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov that Araghchi would deliver the Russian president a message from Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The visit comes less than a week after Iranian and U.S. officials held talks in Oman, the highest level meeting between the two sides since U.S. President Trump abandoned a landmark nuclear deal in 2018 during his first term in office. And in a previous gathering, the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi met with the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, to demand guarantees for the safety of its facilities and impartiality in the agency's compliance with its responsibilities, regardless of external political pressures. The petition comes as an attempt to defuse tensions raised by the U.S. and Israeli governments, which had issued threats to Tehran to force Iranian authorities to meet their demands on nuclear energy. Russian President Vladimir Putin met Thursday with the emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, who is in Moscow for an official visit. The two leaders discussed bilateral cooperation as well as international issues, including the Israeli-Palestine settlement and the issue in Syria, the situation in Syria. During the meeting, the Russian leader highlighted Qatar's efforts to reach a peace agreement in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, while the Qatari emir expressed his satisfaction for the level of relations with Russia. On the other hand, the Russian president reiterated Moscow's efforts to do everything possible to keep Syria as a sovereign, independent and territorially integral state, and to discuss the possibility of providing assistance to the people of the Arab country.
We know that Qatar is making very serious efforts to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Unfortunately, the initiatives put forward, including by you, have not been implemented. Civilians continue to die in Palestine, which is an absolute tragedy of today, a very serious one. We would like to do everything to ensure that Syria, firstly, remains a sovereign, independent and territorially integral state, and we would also like to discuss with you the possibility of providing assistance to the Syrian people, including humanitarian one. There are many problems there, both political and from the point of view of ensuring security, and of a purely economic nature.
And China's President Xi Jinping condemned unilateralism and hegemonism as harmful to the global economic system and lacking in popular support during his visit to Cambodia. At a time of growing global trade tensions, Xi Jinping warned that trade wars erode the multilateral trading system and especially affect developing countries. This stance becomes relevant amid the escalating trade war driven by the United States, in which Chinese products are subject to tariffs of up to 245%. In this regard, the Chinese leader urged the nations of the world to firmly defend their sovereignty and national security against external threats, reaffirming China's commitment to a stable and close diplomacy with its neighbors. The Chinese Film Week kicked off Thursday in Phnom Penh, capital of Cambodia, during President Xi Jinping's state visit to the Southeast Asian country. The festival will take place until April 21st, where 6 Chinese films will be presented. The event is jointly organized by the China Film Administration and the Cambodian Ministry of Culture and Fine Arts. Several dignitaries attended the launch ceremony, including the Vice Minister of the Publicity Department of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, the Cambodian Minister of Culture and Fine Arts, and others. The screenings will also provide an opportunity for Chinese directors and production teams to interact with local audiences and Cambodian film industry professionals. We now have our second and final break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final break, we're going to be right back with more. Welcome back. The Palestinian movement Hamas informed Thursday that it is ready to begin negotiations on a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and the release of hostages in exchange for the withdrawal of Israeli troops. The statement was made by the movement leader Khalid al-Hayya during a televised speech cited by Arab media. A ceasefire was in effect in the Gaza Strip from January 19th to March 1st as part of a deal between Israel and Hamas on the exchange of prisoners. When the truce officially expired, hostilities did not resume due to mediators' efforts to engage the parties in ongoing negotiations on the Gaza settlement. However, Israel has stopped supplying power to the desalination plant in the enclave and has closed access to humanitarian aid trucks entering the Strip. The United Nations reported that most Palestinians in Gaza eat only once every 2 days. Humanitarian aid groups once again condemned the Israeli blockade that prevents the entry of food and other essential goods to the enclave for 2 months now. The United Nations Humanitarian Office denounced that most of the 2 million inhabitants of Gaza depend on soup kitchens, which can only prepare about 1 million meals a day. Authorities added that thousands of children suffer from malnutrition since these meals consist mainly of rice or pasta. Israel continues to justify its blockade as a pressure tactic against the Palestinian resistance movement, Hamas. Meanwhile, the people of Gaza face an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. And in Sudan, clashes over the capture of the city of Al-Fashir, capital of North Darfur state, left at least 130 dead and dozens wounded. In this regard, the nation's armed forces informed through a statement that the rapid support forces had repeatedly shelled the city, causing the death of civilians, among them women and children. In this context, experts emphasize that the paramilitary are trying to take over the coast of Al-Fashir to turn it into the seat of their parallel government, since they control the 5 states of Darfur. And Niger has registered new clashes between the National Army and Islamist groups. The army reported that after military operations in the regions of Tillaberi and Tera, they cleared 2 alleged Islamist groups. The military also stated that 6 members of an alleged Islamist cell were killed near the border with Burkina Faso and 3 others in the Tera region in the town of Garbugna, in the west of the country. These operations are part of our regional security strategies between Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, member nations of the Alliance of Sahel States, to combat terrorist groups within their territories and near their borders. And more than 1 million people have been displaced in the Democratic Republic of the Congo as a result of armed violence in the nation. The United Nations Children's Fund emphasized that civilians have abandoned their homes in the midst of the clashes between the army and the M23 rebel group in the provinces of Ituri, North and South Kivu. The entity pointed out that among the displaced there are at least 400,000 children as a result of the violence. In this sense, UNICEF warned several days ago that minors could represent 45% of almost 10,000 cases of rape and sexual violence. Meanwhile, in the Vatican City, Easter week activities started with the celebration of the Holy Thursday Chrism Mass to bless the oils to be used in ceremonies in Rome parishes throughout the year. Thousands of faithful, including over 1,000 priests, took part in the ceremony in St. Peter's Basilica, which was not attended by Pope Francis, who is still recovering from a life-threatening bout of double pneumonia. The ceremony was instead offered by Cardinal Domenico Calcagno, retired head of the Vatican's Patrimony Office. Pope Francis is expected to remain largely on the sidelines during the week, as cardinals were designated to take his place presiding over the most important liturgical services leading up to Easter. In Italy, a red alert was issued for the north of the country due to heavy rains, thunderstorms, and strong winds. Over 400 firefighters take part in rescue operations in the north of the country due to heavy flooding, overflowing rivers, and landslides that have affected the population. In Piedmont, due to a rise in water levels in the Tosse River, firefighters had to evacuate some residents while working to stop landslides along roads and remove fallen trees. Authorities warned that critical conditions will remain for the next few hours, although they remarked that so far no injuries or serious security problems have been reported. And the Swiss, French, and Italian Alps suffered heavy snowfalls that affected traffic and electricity service. In this regard, French authorities warned of the possibility of avalanches in the Savoie region, where at least 4,000 homes were left without power and several roads were affected. In Switzerland, the government declared a special status for the meteorological event to speed up the deployment of emergency services and the mobilization and delivery of resources, also urging the population to take shelter, while in Italy, roads in the metropolitan city between Turin and Aosta remain closed due to the threat of falling trees after winds of more than 100 kilometers per hour. At this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on our social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.